I've stayed in a lot of hotels over the years and I'm intimately familiar with 5 of the InterContinental Hotel Group's brands. So I'm going to talk about what you can expect in both price and quality when you're staying at these hotels. And then I'm going to answer the question of which of these 5 brands I prefer, and the answer might well surprise you. Hi, I'm Phil and I'm on a grey gap year. I'll be really quick with this, but when I talk about hotels generally, you'll see some themes starting to emerge. I always look for air conditioning in the hotels that I stay at because I live on a quiet street and I keep my bedroom window open, even in the depths of winter, and I usually have a fan running, if only for just, white noise. Wi-Fi is also something I look for. It's important to me, and if I review a room, I'll often try and do a speed test, just to test that the Wi-Fi in the room is, workable. Which brings me to the next thing I look for in a room, which is a desk to work at. Now, this isn't top of the list anymore, but if a travel lodge and a Premier Inn can provide a desk, then why would I settle for a room that doesn't have workspace? An ensuite bathroom is an absolute must for me. There would always have to be a compelling reason for me to book a hotel, knowing that there wasn't going to be a private bathroom connected to my room. But all IHG brands do have ensuite. I'll discuss the 5 brands in price and quality order, starting with the budget end of IHG's brands, which is the Holiday Inn Express. So Holiday Inn Express describes themselves as a mid-scale brand that focuses on offering value-conscious travellers comfortable accommodations with limited service. But let's be honest here, this is the budget brand of the group, and if you want a comparison, then think Premier Inn, but with more of an overall sort of hotel look and feel. Now, I don't know if it's the purple colour scheme, but Premier Inn never feels like a proper hotel to me, but that could just be me being a bit snobby. The Holiday Inn Express brand is consistent across its hotels, and you can be confident that your experience in Colchester is going to be very similar to the one you receive in Norwich, or the one you receive in Glasgow, or Bali, or Bangkok. Your room's going to have a comfortable double bed, tea and coffee making facilities, and somewhere to sit and work. And although some of them had a sort of an adjustable table that kind of sat next to the sofa, so there was no desk, but there was somewhere where you could sit and work. There is usually somewhere in a Holiday Inn Express to sit in the evenings and then get something to eat and drink, and your breakfast in the morning is going to be included, but it's a limited buffet of local foods. In the UK, this is going to be toast, cereal, scrambled eggs and bacon. In Bali, this included sweet and sour fish, although they did offer scrambled eggs and omelettes and some Western options. I guess what I'm saying is, although breakfast is included with your room, don't expect eggs Benedict, smoked salmon, or anything beyond basic breakfast fare. But I like the Holiday Inn Express brand. It is very consistent. I like knowing what I'm going to get. I know what to expect, and it delivers on those brand expectations very well. The only drawback to that is that it just doesn't promise very much. It's a cutback budget brand. Your room's going to be functionable but pretty basic, and it's unlikely there's going to be a gym or any sort of premium facilities, although that Holiday Inn Express in Bali did have a pool with an amazing view of the sunset, and it had a gym too. So there are some exceptions to that rule. The Holiday Inn is probably the most well-known brand in the group, and it's another mid-range offering, but usually with some additional facilities like business centres, gyms, and occasionally a pool. If you start by thinking solid 3-star experience, you won't be far off. However, my experiences have been very up and down, and Holiday Inn doesn't seem to have any kind of defined brand experience, and I'm talking both buildings, room quality and service. And I had a terrible experience at the Holiday Inn just outside London. It was so bad, and I complained so strongly that the property refunded the whole stay. Another Holiday Inn nightmare was at Ashford Central. The shower tray didn't empty, so the water then overflowed onto the bathroom floor and then into the bedroom carpet. And then when I spoke to a member of staff about the problems with the room, I was met with the deadpan, "I'll let someone know." I can't remember if I complained or left a review, but complaints to IHG usually gets a standard 2,000 to 5,000 points, worth about £8 to £20. But contrast this to the Holiday Inn at Huntingdon Racecourse, which is superb. It's got a grand sort of lobby. It feels like you're walking into maybe a 5-star hotel with large, well-appointed rooms. And Gosforth Park in Northumbria was also exceptional. I had a really good dinner at Gosforth Park too. The Dumfries Holiday Inn is also really good, with a lovely building, great staff and a nice restaurant. In fact, it's one of the few times I've ordered steak in a restaurant and not regretted it. And a quick shout out to the Holiday Inn just south of Gatwick, which I stayed in before flying to Sicily. I wasn't there very long, but it was a nice hotel and I'm pretty sure they upgraded me. So some Holiday Inns exceeded expectations in every way, and others, well, they were just full of disappointments, and it's these inconsistencies that just ruins the brand. They're not cheap either. You can pay more for a 3-star Holiday Inn than some of IHG's 4-star brands. In case you haven't realised, I tend to avoid Holiday Inn hotels, and I would recommend that you do the same. Crowne Plaza is the first brand that you might consider to be a more quality brand, and IHG consider this brand to be an upscale brand catering to business and leisure travellers alike, with well-equipped meeting rooms, event spaces and personalised service. Yeah, that sounds more business than leisure. The very best Crowne Plaza I stayed in was in Manchester on Booth Street, which is just off Oxford Road, and although it was built to be a Crowne Plaza, the property owner decided to switch brands and it's now a Hyatt Regency with significantly higher prices. And the Crowne Plaza by Hanger Lane in London was disappointing. Check-in was slow, and although I had top tier status, I wasn't recognised or upgraded. The room I'd booked was a club room, but it was still quite small, hardly enough space to walk around the bed. And that club part, it gives you access to the separate club lounge to get some free drinks, snacks like cheese and biscuits and so on, before you go out for the night. But it had been left in an absolute mess. There was no staff on duty, it was just very dirty, and there was very little food left. I've also stayed at the Crowne Plaza in Perth, which was a nice stay, but I had an issue with their air conditioning being set to heating only. And also at the Crowne Plaza in Frankfurt, which didn't really feel like a 4-star hotel, but I couldn't fault the staff or my stay there. So my view of Crowne Plaza brand is putting that exceptional Manchester hotel that's now a Hyatt to one side. They're a bit beige. They're consistently nice, but that's a bit like a biscuit. They're probably better suited to business travellers. There's absolutely no wow factor if you're having a weekend away. They're just a solid 3 or 4-star experience. But if you can book one for a reasonable price, you should have a nice stay. Hotel Indigo is self-styled as a chain of boutique hotels, which, well, that's a bit of an oxymoron to me. It's a bit like Anheuser-Busch trying to launch an indie craft beer. But IHG describe Hotel Indigo as a boutique hotel brand offering unique and locally inspired accommodations in vibrant neighbourhoods and city centres around the world. And do you know what? I think they do just about pull this off. And they are a bit quirky, and each one's a bit different, and each hotel has its own theme. For example, the theme at the Indigo in Kensington is the literary history and classic Victorian architecture of Kensington. And I've found these hotels to be very nice, but they're also more on the more expensive side of things. But I haven't had a bad experience at a Hotel Indigo, but I have had a couple of hiccups. In Stratford-upon-Avon, the hotel bar had become sort of trendy. It was a bit of a trendy watering hole, and we struggled to find a seat. And this was partly because it was newly opened, but also because the drinks were really cheap by Stratford standards. We also weren't able to order food there because the restaurant and kitchen were apparently at capacity. Now, I've never been in a hotel that couldn't feed me before. I mean, that's poor. That is very poor. And on my last visit to the Hotel Indigo in York, the hotel manager had bizarrely ordered that the air conditioning was to be set to turn itself off periodically through the day and night to save money, and this was during a heat wave. So after a hot and sweaty night, to add insult to injury, front desk told me that it was actually a health and safety measure, not a cost-cutting measure. It was the law. I mean, absolutely ridiculous and entirely and completely not true. But these two hiccups aside, the Indigo is a great brand with lovely hotels, and you should have a wonderful stay. But this is often rather reflected in the price of these hotels. They're described as upscale, and shall we say the price is upscale too. The InterContinental Hotels are the flagship of the IHG group, and I've stayed in all 3 InterContinental Hotels in the UK, on Park Lane and by the O2 in London, and then on George Street in Edinburgh, and I can tell you that I felt well looked after and a bit spoiled at each one. I have read some negative reviews on the InterContinental on Park Lane, and I was a bit concerned before I stayed there, but I had a lovely stay. The rooms were a bit small, and perhaps they were a bit dated, or perhaps they were designed to look how a foreign guest might expect a 5-star hotel bedroom on Park Lane to look. So my room was a bit small, but it is also a central London location. The InterContinental at the O2 is more modern. It's got a very different sort of luxury feel to it. It's got a wide open lobby, marble floors. The rooms are more spacious. It's more modern. The bathrooms were larger. It is a truly luxurious hotel. And the bar at the O2 is particularly good. It's got this wonderful view over the river to Canary Wharf, and day or night, it is an Instagram moment. The George in Edinburgh is different again. It's luxury throughout with fantastic staff, and they give it its own character. The rooms are beautiful, but I wouldn't have wanted to do an evening work there. There wasn't a desk, and I would have needed to find somewhere else to sit if I had to do some work. But I was there on a leisure break, and I just couldn't fault it. The only drawback with the InterContinental brand is these 3 luxury hotels come with very high prices. Hundreds of pounds per night, over £1,000 in some cases, and I just simply can't justify that kind of expense. All of my stays bar one were paid for with free night vouchers or points that gave me a huge cost break over the cash price. The one cash stay was using an Amex cashback offer. But if you have the means to pay the high price tag for the UK InterContinental hotels, then all 3 of these hotels are superb, with the Edinburgh InterContinental being my favourite. You do often see InterContinental hotels in other countries at a much more affordable price. Doha often has prices for under £100. Bali can be a lot cheaper. In fact, the one in Bali can be cheaper than the Indigo. So there are opportunities to try InterContinental hotels around the world. I've stayed a few nights in some of the other IHG brands like Voco and Kimpton, but not enough really to add them to the mix of what would be my favourite hotel brand. The best hotels were without doubt the InterContinentals, but the high price tag, it just puts them out of my reach. And the Holiday Inn brand is to be avoided unless you know the hotel that you're going to. Then you've got no idea what you're going to get until you get there, and then it's just too late. If you can get a good price on the Indigo or the Crowne Plaza or even a Voco or a Kimpton, then you're unlikely to be disappointed with your stay. But for its consistency and excellent value, my preferred brand is the budget end one, the Holiday Inn Express brand. I know what I'm going to get every time I walk in, and I know it's going to be good value. And when I'm selecting a hotel, my base price is usually from a Holiday Inn Express. There has to be good reviews and a reasonable price discount for me to go anywhere else. So why do I gravitate towards branded hotels over independent accommodation? I mean, shouldn't we be supporting local independent businesses? Well, the answer is my past experiences when booking independent hotels. There's been a couple of stories that sort of stick out. When I was travelling around the UK for work, I booked a room in a pub, and I didn't realise from the booking process that the room I was going to be allocated would not have an ensuite bathroom. So I had to get dressed in the night so I could walk down the corridor and go for a pee. Another issue being that there wasn't anywhere for me to prop open a laptop when I needed to work in the evenings. The room actually only just fitted the double bed and not much else. And I've got quite a few stories to tell, but the winning story that made me decide I would only book hotels I could rely on was something that happened to someone else actually in the group that I worked with. Now you've got to understand that we always tended to check in late, so we'd be working all day, and then if we weren't on the road, and then we'd travel to the hotel after work. So this guy was checking in about 9-10 o'clock at night. The hotel, shall we say, did not match the photos, and when he got to his room he was given the dreaded twin beds instead of the double bed that he'd booked. I know, the horror. So he made a cup of tea, called his wife, got himself ready for bed, only to find that when he got into bed, the mattress had a broken spring that stuck into him when he got into bed. And then so he went to change beds into the other bed in the twin room, and the mattress was wet. Now, there always just seemed to be something with the independent hotels that I booked, from flat pillows, squeaky uncomfortable beds, rooms that don't match the description on the website, nowhere to work, noisy plumbing, and other sort of minor gripes that just always made my time away from home a bit more miserable than it really needed to be. In a previous video about how I pick hotels, one of my first steps was to get prices from the IHG website. And I do that so I don't take a risk on an unbranded or independent hotel when I could spend about the same amount but know exactly what I'm going to get from a brand that I'm familiar with. And this is why I do end up staying in a lot of Holiday Inn Express hotels. I really do put my money where my mouth is on this. So I hope you found this video useful. If you did, please do consider giving me a like and think about subscribing, clicking the bell and get some notifications for future videos. I have also recently set up a Patreon account, so if you'd like to support the channel, you can do that there. There'll be a link in the description. And if you'd like to see what the InterContinental on Park Lane is like, then this should be the very next video that you watch. So thank you for watching and joining me on my grey gap year.